I'm Bakhtiar Sanovan and you are watching A News Now. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Donald Trump says second Venezuela strike possible if a government doesn't cooperate. Danish Prime Minister tells Trump to stop threats against Greenland. And all 40 victims of Crans, Montana bar fire identified amid outpouring of grief. The United States is signaling a major shift in Venezuela after a dramatic operation that brought President Nicolas Maduro to New York to face charges. In the meantime, State Secretary Marco Rubio insists that this is not a war.
US President Donald Trump said on Sunday that the United States will be in charge of Venezuela after US Special Forces captured President Nicolas Maduro in a surprise operation. Maduro was flown to New York, where he is being held in a detention center ahead of a court appearance on Monday on drug trafficking charges. His capture has created deep uncertainty about the future of the oil-rich South American country. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said Venezuela is a dead country and claimed the US must bring it back. He said his administration plans to work with remaining members of Maduro's government to curb drug trafficking and restructure the oil industry instead of holding immediate elections. Trump warned that a second US military strike is possible if officials do not cooperate.
The country is a mess. It's been horribly run. The oil is just flowing at a very low level, much lower than, even if it was badly run, it should have more income, more oil than what they do. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in, and they're going to fix the infrastructure, and they're going to invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We're going to cherish the country. We're going to take care, more importantly, of the people, including Venezuelans that are living in our country that were forced to leave their country.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the US is not at war with Venezuela but is running policy through financial pressure and sanctions. He said US naval forces are enforcing an oil quarantine to increase leverage.
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela. We are enforcing American laws with regards to oil sanctions. We have sanctioned entities. We go to court, we get a warrant, we seize those boats with oil, and that will continue.
Meanwhile, Brazil has increased troop and police patrols along its border with Venezuela amid fears of rising refugee flows.
Venezuelans have shared split opinions about the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. This comes as there still remains uncertainty about the running of the country.
Following a US military operation in Venezuela on Saturday that led to the capture and removal of President Nicolas Maduro, who has led the country for the past 12 years, reactions have been mixed as Venezuela enters an uncertain new era. In the United States, Venezuelan citizens took to the streets to celebrate Maduro's capture. Many thanked US President Donald Trump for ordering the operation and expressed optimism about the country's future.
Today I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's some hope. I feel like there will be a space that will become our own for every Venezuelan out here and every Venezuelan in Venezuela too. We have the right to have a place that we're proud of and where we belong, and that was taken from us more than 20 years ago. So.
Similar sentiments were echoed in Mexico, where demonstrators marched carrying Venezuelan flags and signs reading "Freedom" for the South American nation.
Freedom is so great. Even though I'm here, my family is over there. But my children are here. My grandchildren are here. My grandchildren are going to know a free Venezuela. My grandson is going to be able to go to a supermarket and buy things. My grandchildren will be able to go to the hospital. My grandchildren will be free in their country.
Meanwhile, in Venezuela, thousands of government supporters gathered in the streets of Caracas to demand Maduro's return. Following the military operation, Trump announced that Venezuela would be placed under American control until what he described as a proper judicial transition takes place. Maduro's supporters have rejected the idea of US governance and warned of retaliation.
We are free and sovereign. We are a people with guarantees in the Bolivarian Constitution. We are a free people, free and sovereign. Donald Trump is not going to take our oil. Rubio is not going to govern us. We have a president and a vice president who will assume for now. But our president is Nicolas Maduro. We don't want Rubio here. We don't want Maria Corina, and we don't want Edmundo. When Maria Corina enters, we'll go after her. When Edmundo enters, we'll go after them. We have a president and vice president. Respect sovereign peoples. Enough of so much mockery, of so much violence. We are free and sovereign.
Maduro, who is being held at a detention center in New York, is expected to appear in court on Monday, where he faces drug trafficking charges.
Oil prices fell on Monday as adequate global supplies offset concerns about supply disruptions due to U.S. capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro over the weekend. Brent crude fell 50 cents to 60.26 a barrel, while WTI crude dropped 53 cents to $56.79 a barrel. Prices moved up and down in early Asian trading. Investors are watching Venezuela's politics and its impact on oil supply. U.S. President Donald Trump said the oil embargo on Venezuela continues. Analysts say there is enough oil. Problems with Venezuelan exports are unlikely to change prices much. Production may rise by the end of 2026, but it will take time.
Drive up prices. They also warn.
Greenland is back at the center of global attention after President Donald Trump said the United States needs the Arctic island for security reasons. Danish leaders say the territory is not for sale and warn against escalating rhetoric.
Denmark and Greenland have strongly rejected renewed statements by US President Donald Trump suggesting the United States should take over Greenland. Tensions rose further after Katie Miller, wife of Trump advisor Stephen Miller, posted an image of Greenland coloured like the US flag with the word soon. Speaking on Sunday, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said it makes absolutely no sense for the US to talk about taking control of Greenland. She emphasised the United States has no right to annex any part of the Danish kingdom, which includes Denmark, Greenland and the Faroe Islands. Her comments followed an interview Trump gave to The Atlantic magazine, where he said, "We do need Greenland, absolutely," citing US defence needs. He described the Arctic island as strategically vital and said it is surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. The remarks came one day after a major US military operation in Venezuela. Trump said Washington would run the country, raising concerns in Denmark that similar action could be considered toward Greenland. When asked if the Venezuela operation hinted at possible action on Greenland, Trump said the decision was for others to interpret. Frederiksen said Denmark is a NATO member and that Greenland is covered by the alliance's security guarantee. She added that Denmark already has a defense agreement with the US that allows American access to Greenland and has increased Arctic security spending. Greenland's location between Europe and North America makes it vital to US missile defense, while its rich mineral resources add to its appeal as Washington seeks to reduce dependence on Chinese exports.
Russian airstrikes overnight in Kiev killed and injured civilians while sparking fires. Authorities evacuated residents and worked to restore power and essential services.
An overnight Russian air attack on Kyiv and surrounding areas killed at least 2 people, marking the first reported deaths in the capital from Russian strikes this year. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said a private medical facility in the Obolonsky district caught fire, where an inpatient ward was operating. The fire left 1 person dead, 3 people injured, and prompted the evacuation of 25 others. Nighttime images showed emergency responders carrying a body on a stretcher outside the snow-covered building. Authorities said Russia also struck towns and villages across the Kyiv region, damaging homes and infrastructure and killing a civilian in the Fastiv district southwest of the capital. Power outages affected parts of the area, with backup systems maintaining water and heating during temperatures of -8 degrees Celsius. There was no immediate comment from Russia.
Switzerland is mourning the victims of a catastrophic fire at the Le Constellation Bar in the alpine ski resort of Crans-Montana. The blaze, which occurred during New Year's celebrations on January the 1st, is described as one of the worst disasters in modern Swiss history. Now authorities in Switzerland say they have completed the identification process.
The bodies of the 40 victims of a bar fire in the Swiss ski resort of Crans-Montana on New Year's Eve have been identified by police. 26 of the victims were under the age of 18, while 2 of those who lost their lives in the fire were just 14, officials said. According to Swiss police, the victims range in age from 14 to 39 years old, with 15 aged under 18. The group includes people of Swiss, Italian, Turkish, Portuguese, French and Belgian nationalities, as well as a citizen of the UK, France and Israel. In addition to the 40 killed, 119 others were injured. Most have severe burns, 6 of them so severe that they have yet to be identified. 35 have been transferred to hospitals in Belgium, France, Germany and Italy. The fire broke out at the Le Constellation Bar during New Year's Eve celebrations at the popular alpine resort, which was crowded at the time. Emergency services were called to the scene, and survivors were evacuated as firefighters worked to bring the blaze under control. Police said no further details will be released about the victims they had identified out of respect for their relatives. A criminal investigation into the French couple who managed Le Constellation Bar is underway. Residents and visitors in the Swiss resort of Crans-Montana have gathered to pay tribute to the victims and are calling for an independent criminal investigation, saying they want to know who failed.
German authorities say far-left activists were behind a suspected arson attack that triggered a major power outage in southwest Berlin, affecting tens of thousands of homes and businesses. A group calling itself the Volcano Group claimed responsibility, saying the attack targeted the fossil fuel energy sector. Berlin's interior minister said security agencies consider the claim credible. High-voltage cables near the Lichtenfelde power plant were set on fire early Saturday, cutting electricity to about 45,000 households and more than 2,000 businesses in near-freezing temperatures. Power restoration is ongoing, with some areas expected to remain without electricity until Thursday. The 5th round of talks between Israel and Syria will reportedly start on Monday in Paris, the first meetings in nearly 2 months after progress toward a security arrangement between the two countries stalled. The delegation said the Paris meetings will be led by Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani and Israeli Ambassador to the United States Yechiel Later. The goal is to reach an agreement on security arrangements in the Holon Heights that will replace the 1974 disengagement agreement between the two sides. In Paris, demilitarization of southern Syria will be also on the agenda. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has arrived in Beijing for a state visit hosted by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The talks are expected to focus on boosting economic cooperation and tourism as the leaders meet for the second time in 2 months. Our correspondent in Beijing has more.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has arrived in Beijing for a 4-day state visit, accompanied by a 200-strong delegation of government officials and business leaders, including executives from Samsung, Hyundai and the SK Group. This marks Lee's first official visit to China since taking office, showing an active effort to strengthen economic and bilateral ties between Seoul and Beijing. The visit comes during ongoing regional tensions, including North Korea's recent missile activities, and reflects South Korea's efforts to balance relations with both the United States and China. High-level talks with President Xi Jinping are expected to cover economic cooperation, trade, supply chains, cultural exchange and stability on the Korean peninsula. Agreements on investment, digital economy and tourism collaboration are also anticipated, with a formal summit and state banquet planned. The visit follows recent meetings between Lee and President Xi at the APEC summit, emphasizing both countries' commitment to deepening bilateral ties and is seen as a key step toward enhancing practical cooperation and regional stability in East Asia. Manu Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the fallout from the U.S. military operation in Venezuela, including the arrest of Nicolas Maduro and the appointment of Delcy Rodriguez as acting president, and what this means for regional stability. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Tensions in Latin America have escalated sharply after a U.S. military operation in Venezuela led to the detention of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Washington now says it will run Venezuela temporarily, while Maduro's ally, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, has been appointed acting president and signaled a willingness to cooperate. The operation has drawn international criticism and raised concerns about regional stability. Now we discuss the implications with our guest, Umesh Kumar Agarwal, geopolitical and geoeconomics analyst joining us from Chennai, India. Mr. Agarwal, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
So how unprecedented is the U.S. military operation in Venezuela and the detention of Maduro on foreign soil?
Basically, this operation is an extraction operation, and it looks like the inner circle of Maduro was compromised. And it was this transition which is happening right now, the power transition is happening, whereby Delcy Rodriguez has been appointed in view of Maduro. It will signal that America is following the Monroe Doctrine. It does not want any foreign power intervention to happen in the North America, the Latin America, and even Greenland. And it suggests that America is very much particular that the Chinese and the Russians will not have any influence in this region. And if you see, if Trump has come last year, he changed the name of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Then suddenly he said that he will be purchasing Greenland. And right now he has threatened countries like Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico. Even today, India was threatened. So Trump is going like it's like a clear-cut American hegemony at play. Earlier, it used to be covert. Now it is overt and very much, what do you say? The American hard power is coming up. This is what I can see happening.
Mr. Agarwal, how significant is the appointment of Delcy Rodriguez as acting president, and what does her willingness to cooperate signal?
Her willingness to cooperate means that right now Venezuela will become the vassal state of America. And the vast resources, which is valued around $20 trillion, which includes crude oil and even the 8,000 tons of gold, it signals that America will profit from this extraction of Maduro. And this is like that Venezuela is becoming a vassal state of America. It's clear-cut. It's very much seen.
So could this operation spark wider unrest or even armed resistance within Venezuela?
A lot of things are happening right now. If you see the next few days will define how things are going out in Venezuela. And I do believe that the public, the citizens of Venezuela will accept this in due course. What was happening was they had extracted Maduro. Delcy Rodriguez is now cooperating. So this signals that all the top officials of the administration were in cahoots and they have been actually compromised to act for America's interest. This is what America is signaling.
Mr. Agarwal, how credible is the threat of a second U.S. strike against the remaining members of Maduro's government?
It seems that how the government, the new government, will act. It would be seen in few days. But if I see, if you read the statements of Delcy Rodriguez, I believe that she would be cooperating with. She would be cooperating, and definitely, I think so. The second strike will not happen, and Donald Trump is very much clear. Has made it very clear, just not to Venezuela, but to Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico as well.
So what do you think? What impact could this have on U.S. relations with neighboring countries like Colombia and Mexico, as you have mentioned, especially given Trump's statements?
Basically, it is like they have to adhere and serve the American interest. And if you see, the major fallout is they are ensuring that the Chinese influence in Latin America withers away. This is what I get it. And one more thing, China has invested around $105 billion in Venezuela. And it has invested over $1.3 trillion in BRI initiative. America is trying to hurt Chinese investments and interest in all the countries where they have interest. Earlier, if you see, even in Pakistan, the pro-Chinese Imran Khan was taken off. Similarly, regime change operations had happened in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, Nepal. So all the playbook is very much clearly visible. And if you see, the next possible intervention might happen in Iran as well. China and Iran have signed a 25-year-old deal for $400 billion investment from China. So I basically believe that America is trying to hurt Chinese investment, BRI investment, and ensure that dollar is being traded in, that petrol is being traded in dollar. The petrol-dollar arrangement remains in place in the monetary system. No other currency should come into play. It happened the same with Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. And Maduro paid the price for transacting in yuan.
Mr. Agarwal, how have European countries reacted, and what does this suggest about global opinion on the operation?
The European countries have to toe to the line of Donald Trump. It is clearly visible that they have wholeheartedly supported Donald Trump. And Nicolas Maduro election was stated as illegitimate. And I do believe that the world is going towards a multipolar world order where America would be much more concentrated in the Western Hemisphere. This Western Hemisphere will include Europe as well in the days to come.
So how might Maduro's detention affect the internal power dynamics and loyalty of his supporters?
His supporters will be asked to actually bow down, and I do believe that they would be imprisoned if they do not, if they revolt. And after Maduro is gone, everybody will switch sides, and they will act according to the whims and fancies of America.
So could this operation set a precedent for U.S. intervention in other countries, and how might that affect global stability?
The global stability will see brazen American intervention across the world. And next regime change is likely to happen in Iran or Colombia or Cuba or Mexico. It is very much clear. And today, even Donald Trump stated that he needs Greenland for the security, for American security. And in spite of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway opposing it, Donald Trump might take out Greenland very soon.
So, Mr. Agarwal, what are the immediate risks for the civilian population in Venezuela amid this power shift?
The basic thing is the civilian population will generally watch right now how things are holding out. And I do believe that they will ultimately realize there is no point in fighting battle with America. It is pointless. They would act as a subservient state like Mexico.
And also looking ahead, what scenarios should we watch for in the coming weeks in terms of Venezuelan governance and regional security?
Venezuela will need to open its oil wells for American companies. They have to allocate contracts to American companies. And America has stated that they need to invest around $60 billion, and it will take about 1 decade for modernization of all the oil facilities of Venezuela. So this will happen. And one more thing is all the dollars, all the petrol, all the crude oil will be sold in US dollars, and the currencies would be discouraged. This is to maintain the hegemony of dollar in the monetary system. This is very clear cut.
Umesh Kumar Agarwal, thank you for your insights. Your analysis helps us understand the complexities and potential consequences of these extraordinary developments in Venezuela. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
After the break, we'll take a look at major stories from the region.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
These are our people that are dying every day because these missiles and drones are still able to fly.
Dual goods that are found in the battlefield.
The U.S. and other countries have sanctioned Vladimir Putin directly for the invasion.
Armenian trade with Russia has increased like 300-400% since 2022.
Росія у Вірменії використовує різні методи обходу санкцій.
Dual-use goods, which can be non-military goods like washing machines, can be then dismantled and they are used for military purposes inside Russia.
All these components were produced by the countries who provided the sanctions against Russia.
So the trade is two ways: banned Western goods, which are sanctioned, going through Armenia, and Russian goods going out, like diamond, golds, and other expensive raw materials going out from Russia through Armenia to the West.
There is a reluctance on the side of the Western institutions to impose any sanctions on Armenia.
Welcome back to A News Now. Let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Iran is facing widening unrest as demonstrations over economic hardship spread from Tehran to several provincial cities. Authorities have pushed back against foreign warnings, while the country's top leadership has vowed not to yield.
At least 16 people have been killed and hundreds arrested amid protests across Iran. Furthermore, Iranians are facing internet disruptions, with connections reportedly down by around a third compared with normal levels. Officials say the country recently fended off a major cyber attack, which may be contributing to the slowdown. The protests began a week ago among bazaar traders and shopkeepers in Tehran, angered by a sharp fall in the value of the rial and soaring inflation above 36%. By Tuesday, university students had joined and demonstrations spread to provincial cities. After Donald Trump's warning on Friday that the United States would come to the aid of protesters if they were violently targeted, Iran rejected any foreign interference, with Minister of Foreign Affairs Abbas Araghchi saying Tehran would forcefully reject such actions. A day later, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, addressed the unrest, saying the Islamic Republic will not yield to the enemy and that rioters must be put in their place. He said the shopkeepers' initial concerns over the currency were legitimate, but accused enemy-provoked elements of exploiting the protests. Earlier, President Masoud Pezeshkian acknowledged that failings by the authorities had contributed to the crisis. At the same time, Iran's economy has been under strain for years due to US and Western sanctions, compounded by regional tensions.
A strong warning has been issued by the United States, with President Donald Trump saying Washington will respond forcefully if Iranian security forces escalate violence against protesters. Demonstrations have spread across the country over rising inflation, with rights groups reporting at least 16 deaths in clashes with security forces. Trump says Washington is watching the situation closely and is prepared to act if civilians are targeted. Iranian leaders have rejected the warning, with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei saying the country will not yield to outside pressure. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has taken steps toward removing Catholicos Garegin II, the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, according to local media. Pashinyan met with 10 senior clergymen at his official residence, where they signed a statement outlining a roadmap for what they described as reforming church leadership. The statement criticized the church leadership for moral failings, political involvement, arbitrary governance, and internal divisions. The signatories said the process aims to revive the church and strengthen its spiritual role. Pashinyan and the clergymen also announced the formation of a coordinating council to oversee the reform process. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has spoken to the Turkistan newspaper in his traditional New Year interview, setting out record economic results and outlining the country's priorities for the years ahead. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina highlights the key takeaways from that conversation.
Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has reported record economic results, outlining key national priorities in his traditional New Year interview. He says the economy grew by more than 6%, with GDP exceeding $300 billion and GDP per capita rising above $15,000. Tokayev describes these figures as record high, not only for Kazakhstan but for the wider region, while warning that even favorable conditions can still involve risks and leave no room for complacency. A significant part of the interview focuses on transport and logistics. Despite being landlocked, Kazakhstan views its position at the center of Eurasia as a strategic advantage. And by 2030, the country plans to build and modernize 5,000 kilometers of railways and repair an additional 11,000 kilometers. 12 international transport corridors already cross Kazakhstan, carrying up to 85% of overland freight between China and Europe. The interview also sets out a technological agenda. In Kazakhstan, 2026 will be declared the year of digitalization and artificial intelligence. Tokayev describes AI as a dividing line between countries that adapt to the new technological era and those that fall behind, saying Kazakhstan must be among the first group. Another priority raised in the interview is rare earth metals. Tokayev says global demand for critical materials is expected to double within the next 5 years, with Kazakhstan aiming to position itself among the world's leading holders of reserves. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Uzbekistan is opening new export routes to the Middle East, with deliveries to Iraq and Syria projected to reach $650 million this year. Improved transport corridors linking Central Asia with the Caucasus and onward to the Middle East are expected to play a key role. Sevil Rajapova has more from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan is expanding access to Middle Eastern markets, with exports to Iraq and Syria expected to reach up to $650 million in 2026, driven by growing demand for electrical equipment and construction materials. Iraq remains the largest opportunity, where annual imports exceed $90 billion, while duty-free Erbil in northern Iraq is emerging as a logistics hub for distributing goods across Iraq and into neighboring Syria. From there, products can also reach wider Middle Eastern markets. Transport routes are already in place. A truck delivery to Baghdad takes around 10 working days and costs about $3,300, while shipments to Damascus take roughly 20 days at a cost of $4,500. These roads are being positioned as part of a border network connecting Central Asia with the South Caucasus and onward to the Middle East. Uzbekistan is also developing transit cooperation across the Caspian and Caucasus corridors, including through Azerbaijan, to improve connectivity between Central Asia, the Caucasus and Middle Eastern markets. Trade exhibitions, business councils and upcoming delegations from Iraq and Syria are expected to support practical export growth, starting in early 2026. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
In Syria, authorities have launched a nationwide exchange of old banknotes as part of broader economic reforms. Officials say the move is designed to stabilize the currency and restore public trust after years of conflict and financial strain.
Syrians began exchanging old banknotes for new ones as part of a plan to replace notes issued under the Assad era. The move is aimed at supporting the value of the national currency, which has been weakened by years of conflict and sanctions. The new government, led by President Ahmed al-Sharaa, is seeking to rebuild state institutions and revive the economy after more than a decade of war and financial isolation. The redesigned banknotes will remove 2 zeros in an effort to restore public confidence in the Syrian pound.
It creates confusion, of course. 100%. It creates confusion for a month or more than a month, until people get used to it. Some people make mistakes.
Most Syrians have reacted positively to the news, interpreting this change as a major milestone.
Of course we will get confused at first, but not very much. For example, £10,000 means it is £1 million. It is good to put money in your wallet, not like before. May God reward them, those who made this happen. Honestly, they made an achievement and we thank them very much.
While some bankers have warned of possible inflation risks, the central bank said the exchange will be carried out in a smooth and orderly manner. Officials added that the new notes are part of wider monetary reforms to improve cash circulation, simplify transactions and strengthen financial stability.
China and Pakistan say they are ready to deepen regional coordination on Afghanistan as both countries underline security concerns and call for a greater international engagement with Kabul. The remarks come after a high-level meeting between the foreign ministers of the two countries in Beijing. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has the details from Kabul.
China and Pakistan have signaled their intention to continue using the trilateral dialogue mechanism that also includes Afghanistan, with the goal of producing a concrete progress on regional stability. In their joint statement, China and Pakistan said they will stay in close contact on Afghanistan and work with the international community to support political stability and security in the country. They stressed the need for an inclusive political system in Afghanistan, with moderate policies and good relations with neighboring countries, which they see as key to long-term stability, development and global integration. Security was a major focus of the talks, with both sides raising concerns about militant groups operating from Afghan territory and the risks they pose to the region and beyond. China and Pakistan called for clear and effective action against terrorist groups in Afghanistan and stressed that Afghan soil must not be used to carry out attacks against other countries. This position aligns with repeated assurances from Kabul, which has maintained that it will not allow Afghan territory to be used to threaten other nations. China and Pakistan say continued engagement through regional platforms remains key as they push for a stable, peaceful Afghanistan that contributes positively to regional connectivity rather than insecurity. Tamim Bahiz in Kabul, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the escalating unrest in Iran, from deadly protests driven by economic hardship and an energy crisis to the growing international tensions sparked by U.S. warnings of possible intervention. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Iran is facing one of its most serious waves of unrest in recent years. At least 16 people have been killed since protests erupted a week ago over worsening economic conditions and the deepening energy crisis. Demonstrations have spread to more than 60 cities across 25 provinces, with security forces responding through mass arrests and force. As tensions escalate inside Iran, rhetoric is also sharpening abroad, with U.S. President Donald Trump warning of possible intervention if the crackdown continues. To examine the political implications, regional risks, and what may come next, we're joined now by Melih Demirtas, former diplomat and political analyst, live from Ankara, Turkey. Mr. Demirtas, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan.
So, Mr. Demirtas, how serious is the current wave of protests compared to previous unrest Iran has experienced in recent years?
Mr. Hassanov, Iran's system or Iran's political turmoil have been always apparent since the creation of this Islamic Republic. The recent history of Iran is full of clashes, full of some community ideals, ideological rivalries, but it is also combined with some, of course, international developments. We cannot skip the factor of the international or maybe regional balances. Now, as you all see, this regional balances is appearing now everywhere, from Latin America to Europe, to Eurasia, to the Middle East. Also the region of Turkey. We are very, very near to many crises in our atmosphere, also the Azerbaijan and Turkey's atmosphere and region. We can say that Iran's situation is like a full of this package. I mean, the community is, I think, an intellectual community. I mean, the peoples there are really reading, they are really following developments, what is happening in the region globally, also regionally. So we can see that this economic factor is maybe apparent as the number one issue or number one reason behind these demonstrations. But it is also thought that all these region concepts and all these maybe ideological rivalries is also apparent in Iranian politics nowadays. Mesut Pezeshkian, I think, appeared in such a turmoil time, in such a crisis atmosphere. He really made some effort for reform and for maybe democratizing, quote-unquote, or liberalizing the regime in a sense, in a community, first of all, in a political or economic sense. But I think the rivalry is so deep. And now we will all watch what will happen, especially under the real pressure of the United States, because Mr. Trump's, political philosophy or foreign policy is so, not in control, especially in these last months, as we all see in Venezuela in the last couple of days. So we all watch what will the Iranian elites will take as the next step.
So, Mr. Demirtas, the protests have spread widely, including to smaller and remote cities. Why is that significant for the Iranian authorities?
The economy is not the same. I mean, this regional or societal balance is, of course, changing from smaller towns to cities like the case in all countries, I mean, from our experiences from community or society levels, we can understand the Iranian politics. We can understand these grievances of Iranian, maybe societal discussions. But we can see that these intellectual also levels, or intellectual or much more political levels, they are much more focused maybe in the bigger cities. Of course, first of all, starting from Tehran and the northern and southern sections of the country. But in towns or smaller cities, we can also see that this economy can be much more heavy and can have much more negative results upon the sectors of the community. Because maybe tens of years of embargo, we must not also forget that this embargo situation and the pressure from the international level really firstly came as a shock or as an important impulse to the community, to the ordinary people of Iran. Now the elites, I mean, also from this religious sectors, also the Pezeshkian's government, I mean, political sectors, they also know that they must solve something. Because of this, they also declaring that these protests are acceptable to a level. Because all the people in a country can have some grievances, they can protest, and we're also in these days, especially, they are declaring this so openly. The people can protest, but we must be careful also to this external, I mean, level of pressure coming first of all, I think, from United States or even Israel.
So President Masoud Pezeshkian has called for a kind and responsible approach toward protesters. How much influence does he realistically have over security forces?
First of all, we must be hopeful. Yes, for a regime like Iran, it is an important regime which can be also called by many political scientists, diplomats, as an ideological regime. We have many ideological regimes. I must not maybe be a much more Western-centered argument. I do not want to maybe combine my argument with this pure Western ideology, no. But in every ideology or political system, some ideological claims can be made. I think Iranian regimes also knowing this, these religious leaders first of all, but Mr. Pezeshkian came in a very critical period. Because of this, he really declared many times that such protests can be acceptable to a level. Also with his foreign contacts, I mean, think about these last months, from Armenia to especially Azerbaijan, to Turkey, to European partners, even to Central Asia. He made important contacts to explain himself, to explain also his difficulties in its regime and country. And so he really also struggles to explain maybe to his own people. But it is very, very critical times in all over the world, as we also see last time in the Latin American sectors of these countries. Also, they must be really careful, and Iranian politics must be also much more clever compared to the past. If they want to be really in a democratic or liberalizing system in very soon, they must also have this, arguments and discussion with its own community. Because this community discussion and democratic discussions are important. And really, Mr. Pezeshkian has a chance still to make this connection with his own community.
So, Mr. Demirtas, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to intervene if violence continues. How seriously should Tehran take these warnings?
Of course, it's unacceptable, Mr. Aslanov. With United States, of course, design of projection of world politics continued starting from this maybe end of the Second World War, especially the second half of the Cold War. We all over the world, seen from Latin America, even to Turkey, to Iran, to other countries of the world. United States presence can be so direct, so open. Sometimes they have some, of course, important foreign policy agendas. But nowadays, I think Trump made this not so secretly, and he really openly declares that he can really design in one night or in a couple of weeks many regions. And suddenly, of course, especially in the near region and or near abroad, you can say, of the United States, we have seen such developments in like Venezuela. But now in Iran, in such a country where thousands of years of community ideals, I think political or economic sectors are really establishing some important hegemony in the region. I think, yes, we must be also careful about the peaceful atmosphere of our region. I mean, as Turkey, as Azerbaijan, as also other countries in the region. And so, if we can make this diplomacy between the actors, first of all, United States in Iran, and if this elites, I mean, Mr. Pezeshkian or Mr. Trump, can come together to a table, we really do not want to see such a result like the escalation of this tension especially in the military sense, because the last attacks coming from Israel and the United States to Iran, it is really shocking. It's really shocked all the world, and also first whole region, and we do not want to see this again. But yes, Mr. Trump's era and Mr. Trump's foreign policy can really have some shocking results in a very short time, and we must be, I think, prepared to make much more effective diplomacy, especially in such an era.
So in your view, how might such statements from Washington affect the behavior of Iranian protesters?
If they are really intellectual, if you are really following the world, if you are really following what is happening in different regions of the world, they can also understand that to be independent, first of all, to be independent from foreign influences, to be real independent in their own country, it also deserves attention. I mean, like in Turkey, like in Azerbaijan, in other countries, we really attribute special importance to our independence. And these protesters, I mean, of course, they have important grievances from economic reasons, from, of course, political or ideological reasons for tens of years. But still, they must really follow what's happening in the world, especially nowadays, from Ukraine, Palestine, from Venezuela to other countries in Asia. I think they must also have this chance democratically. But as maybe Mr. Pezeshkian said, the foreign influence is so apparent. It is not secret anymore, and they must be, I mean, the people of Iran also must be careful when they are having this really legitimate democratic rights.
So Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says Iran will not yield to pressure. Historically, how has the leadership responded when faced with both internal unrest and external threats?
As I said, Iranian regime is a sui generis regime. I always compare it, of course, with Israeli government. Unfortunately, as Israel made important, also ideological, very cultural, combined with this political motives in this last 2 years in Palestine, in Lebanon, Syria. Iran is the other side of the medallion, another religious perspective, but still, it can also create some ideological real motives in its region. It is not so aggressive maybe in this last year, like Israel did in its region, but still, we must be careful about such ideological, especially very important pushovers, I mean, in international politics. So we must separate this government, I mean, political government of Iran, of course, from this religious leaders. It is not so easy, but still, I think the important chamber or the important groupings around Mr. Pezeshkian in Iran, around these political motifs in Iran, I think they can also affect this religious leadership in a much more, I hope, in a liberalized or democratized manner. Unless they do this, I mean, Mr. Trump or even Russia's or China's calculations, I mean, in the back door, think about this Alaska meeting, for example, just 2-3 months ago between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin. I think very important calculations are still going on in the world politics and regional politics. And Iran must be also careful, both in religious sectors, both in political sectors, and they must really discuss with their own people first, and also with the regional actors like Turkey and the other actors like Europe, even with Mr. Trump.
So finally, what should regional countries and global powers be watching most closely as the situation continues to unfold?
The opinions differ from one sector to another. I think this European balance or European much more liberal or moderate wings are also differing from, especially sharply nowadays, from the United States ideology, we can say, because Mr. Trump's, Mr. Rubio's, I mean, foreign minister, is so hawkish, as also seen in these last 2 days in Venezuela events. Compared to them, I think European partners also can help, especially in such a period, fragile period of Iran. But also we hope that Russia and China and the other, of course, important focus of powers in world politics, they must also help to find a bridge in such fragile atmospheres. Turkey, of course, and Azerbaijan and such middle powers, we always having some diplomatic power in front of such crisis, but still, I think we need all actors to make differences. Because Mr. Trump and, as I said, Mr. Rubio's and his cabinet, they really can have some important calculations behind the doors, and behind this politics, we are all afraid that it can really create a new world order, which can be so under the influence of military calculations or under the influence of some destructive results, as Israel did in these last 2 years.
Melih Demirtas, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us from Ankara. We appreciate your time and perspective on this developing situation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You're up to date with World News for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.